Hey hoes, my name's Crit,
I'm Tia.
And I'm Michael.
and welcome to Island Fever, where grown ass Pacific Islanders talk about doing grown things. And welcome back to Fresh Takes. We have a very special guest. Her name is Kimberly-Rose Ka'iulani Wolter, and you might have seen her doing her thing as an actress, producer, director, but she's most known for her screenwriting, namely on NCIS. You may have heard that little show, and she's also done a whole bunch of work, including teaching screenwriting at UCLA.
Hello, Taco. What's up, everybody?
Same old. Now, you're our first guest on Fresh Takes. One other thing I wanted to add about Kim is she's also an avid dodgeball player. She'd be catching, she'd be throwing, she'd be sniping.
Yeah, our MVP, our captain.
As someone who was born and raised in Hawaii and Oahu in particular, we thought it'd be really great to get your insights on a show that's set in Hawaii. Well, it's buzzing right now because it's currently in its third season, White Lotus. It's basically gotten like rave reviews ever since the first season. And given it's a hot topic right now, I wanted to do a throwback to season one, which is, set in Hawaii. Michael and Tia, I want to get your thoughts. Well, just how would you describe the show? What's it about?
I would describe it as very entitled tourists visiting Hawaii with all their rich people problems.
Yeah, rich white people acting up and acting poorly. Rich white mess. That's what I would call it. Rich white
mess. All right.
It's a genre of show I do appreciate.
So Michael was born and raised in Hawaii. Tia is native Hawaiian, and then we've got Kim, who is native Hawaiian and born and raised in Hawaii as well. So, and then there's me, who's neither. We'll get an interesting, overview about season one of White Lotus. But I wanted to get Kim to open the floor. What comes to mind when you think of their show?
I have so many thoughts about it. First of all, the wallpaper. Why are those random animals on the wallpaper? Because what does that have to do with Hawaii? I don't understand it. And from the get-go, I was like, red flag, what's happening?
Wait, is this wallpaper in the hotel or
it's wallpaper? In the title? It's like credits. Moving credits. And I think, I could be wrong, but I think there's like a panther and there's a monkey, and then all of a sudden there's like a va'a coming, like a canoe. And I'm like, I'm already having a sinking sensation.
Exoticism,
So, but I wanted to like it. Everybody said it was amazing. My daughter and I binge watched it. And as we move forward, it was more of a horrifying binge watch than an enjoyment binge watch. And I understand, yes, it's people behaving badly. However, I was also told that it was a satire and it was about colonialism. And I think my biggest problem with it is that the Kanaka characters were erased from the narrative. And so you cannot have commentary and try and satire something that you are perpetuating in the structure of your show. So I hope everybody's familiar with it. If you're not, there's a really great Hawaiian or local character, and she's in the first episode and she's pregnant. And I fell in love with her immediately. And I was so excited about that because I was like, she's great. She's just a fun character. I wanted to know. That lady gives birth and then she disappears and we never hear from her again. And I'm like, why? Why did she disappear so quickly? And then as the show goes on, the employees that we stay with happen to be transplant employees. They're not even local. They're not even trying to pretend that they were born and raised there. One of the dudes who ends up being killed, he has a different accent. He's from a different country. And so my question is, why did we not make this show in San Diego? Because all of the relevant people could have been at any 4 seasons, and it didn't have to be about Hawaii. So please don't tell me it's about colonialism when there's no Kanakas that actually have an arc. And then when we have the boy Kekua, who plays Kai, and then he kind of comes along, and then he has that whole Aina speech and colonialism speech. It feels very forced. It feels very, but I was like, okay, redeeming. And we were like, yes, redeeming. And then his character flips, ends up becoming a thief after he seems like he's established he has these good morals. He's a thief for a chick he just met. And then when he's running down the beach, I'll never forget this. He's running down the beach and it starts to kind of get soft. The lens gets soft. And my daughter was like, no, Mom. Okay, we're going to know his story now. We're going to find out more about him. And I was like, no, baby. That's it. he's done. He's a plot point. He is an
Mm.
actually fleshed out character. And the people writing this don't care about the Hawaiian experience.
Not
We're
people.
here as like
One person.
one person. Don't care about, but you know, TV shows are not made by one person. The executives
Right, yeah,
people
yeah,
could
yeah,
have
yeah.
intervened. People could have said something. But yes, you're right, one person. But as he went down the beach, I was like, we're never going to hear about him because the people who made the show don't care about the Hawaiian experience. So please stay in your lane and just say this is a show about rich people behaving badly. Please do not pretend it's about colonialism, because if it is, it's just a show of perpetuation.
Oh, I wanted to ask you a question, Kim. So the first question is, does the show itself purport to be about colonialism, or is this from people telling you that it was about, like, people who watched it who wanted to justify its place in Hawaii? Because that's what often happens, right? People watch a shitty show and they want to enjoy it because they want to look past how problematic it is, right? And so I feel like that's often an excuse. No, it's really good. It's got great social commentary, but really it's because they like this shit and they don't care that it exploits Hawaiians or anybody like that. So that's my first question.
Yeah, so both, because I remember being on I mean, you know, when you get in a call with anybody in the industry and they're like, "You're from Hawaii? Oh my God, are you watching White Lotus? I love it so much.
God.
It's so good. It's talking about blah, 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 blah." And I'm like, so from people for sure. But then also I was curious if that was the take from Mike White. And in his interviews, I mean, he's very thoughtful. Do you know what I mean? It doesn't seem like his intention was bad. And he talks about, like, it's colonialism. It has such an interesting history of colonialism. It makes it so complex because Hawaii is colonized, you know, so he uses that word multiple times. And his intention doesn't seem bad. But the thing is, in this day and age, intention is not enough in story. It's not enough in general. I go to sing karaoke in public. My intention is to never suck. I always suck. Intention is not enough. You know what I'm saying? So his intention was to kind of shed light on this, but he doesn't have the
He doesn't have the range. Yeah.
the experience. What he does have is, and he says this in interviews, he's been to Hawaii. It inspired him. Well, guess what we got was the experience of somebody who's been in Hawaii for maybe 3 weeks. Is not enough to have Kanaka arcs, and it shows. So, oh my gosh, season 2 in Italy, phenomenal. And why? Because you can see ancestry. There's clearly like a relating that, oh, this is where descendants are coming from. So those Italian characters, they speak their own language. They have their own stories. They have complicated arcs. There's many Italian characters. There's not just 2. And they are reoccurring throughout the whole season. They're not guests. They're actual characters. And that's because he has context for them. In season 1, we are treated like Disney employees. We are literally there to serve. And that is fucked up. And that's perpetuating a narrative that needs to stop in storytelling. People who live in Hawaii do not fold up when your vacation is over and live in a box. They are people. And that's how we need to be shown in any kind of media.
The character that you fell in love with at the start, she's not even a Kanaka actress, right? I remember looking through it straight away. So one
lady. Yeah.
Right. And I believe she was portrayed to be like, I mean, you would be open to believe she is Kanaka, right? Upon viewing. And then the second thing is, when you talk about season 2, whiteness is centered in it, right? So they're going to give that respect to those people. And I think also it speaks to the bigger picture. If we look at the history of Pacific Island representation in television and film, you know, it's particularly Hawaii, but we look back to the 50s, right? 40s, 50s. You have films like Blue Hawaii, like Return to Paradise, where it again starts with white men and then the islands are the backdrop, right? So it still centers white people. And then you go forward to like the 90s, 2000s, you have films like Forgetting Sarah Marshall, 51st Dates, and Aloha, where they literally have Emma Watson.
Do not even.
Right, as a Kanaka actress. And then you fast forward to now, right? And you have I Know What You Did Last Summer, you have White Lotus, you have Dugi Kamealoha, which has the titular character is Hawaiian, but it's played by a non-Hawaiian actress. But either way, it's still centering non-Hawaiians. And I think that speaks to the bigger picture of, and this is what I believe, this is an intentional attack on Hawaiian sovereignty, because there are real life implications to these things, right? As far as policy goes. And I think this just like further solidifies the idea that this is not your land. You know, when you show a particular image of who lives on this land and who it belongs to and who kind of claims ownership, I think that speaks to the fact that the US does not want Hawaiians to see themselves or anyone else to see Hawaiians as having sovereignty over this land. So, you know, it makes sense that when they move it off to like Italy or wherever, like if they were going to do it in Europe, there would be a very stark contrast as far as who this place belongs to.
I think to follow that is that I think there is a misnomer in the continent of terms of Hawaiian tradition and Hawaiian culture. And I think that so much of that erasure is because people think of Hawaii as a destination. They think of it as magical, and they think of it behind museum glass, like Hawaiians are dead and extinct. Mm-hmm. And so when they try to cast us and stuff, they're like, they're not there. They don't exist. It's not there. No, we're here, and our culture continues to evolve, and our culture is modern, and we have a long-standing culture, but we are here. And so people think back to, oh no, Hawaii's this, it's that tiki thing, it's this, it's that. It's always something in the past that's trying to be revived. And so it's so important to acknowledge Hawaiians are here right now, and the culture is changing as we speak, because we are not a people who are behind museum glass, and we are not extinct, and we are not what you think we are, and we don't look how you want us to. Mm-hmm. And so stop casting Filipino people because you think that's how a Hawaiian looks. You know what I'm saying? That's the truth. People have their own preconceived notions of what Hawaii is to them. And please stop. Come to us. We will tell you what Hawaii is and who Hawaiians are.
So as we have two Hawaiians on this, you know, in this conversation, who are both mixed, right? Because there's so many Hawaiians in Hawaii who are mixed. Well, first of all, the majority of the population is Asian. And then you have a large portion of the native Hawaiian population, the Kanaka Maoli, who are mixed with Asian too, right? And so you start to see, and what I've noticed, you know, as someone who's come from outside of Hawaii altogether, you really start to see how Asians do not have an issue taking up space of Hawaiians, you know, like, and that goes to applying for, even for the organization around Peak. Like, there are so many Asians who were born in Hawaii who apply, and I'm baffled. I'm like, how do you think it's okay to take up space? And they talk about how in community they are with Hawaiians. And I'm like, if you were in such close community, you would not dare touch that, right? Because even as a Samoan who grew up in Aotearoa, like, we wouldn't dare touch anything that's meant for Māori. So I feel like it speaks to that, you know, the fact that there are so many mixed people out there that Asians do feel so comfortable, and there's an entitlement, right, of who Hawaii belongs to and who a Hawaiian is.
Yeah. And it's tricky because we come from a plantation culture, right? And there are so many people in Hawaii who are not Hawaiian who do not know anything but Hawaii. So culturally, they identify as Hawaiian, culturally, but you're not ancestrally Hawaiian, and there is a difference. And
I was just going to say I have like a different take. Like, I feel all of those feelings, and especially as like an actor and a writer in Hollywood, you know, these are opportunities where we could be part of this picture. However, it's not the picture that I would want. Cool, Mike White, you can go off and tell your story about Hawaii. I want all of us to be able to do that as well. So sure, go ahead and do White Lotus. I avoided watching it until like this month. I don't like the first season. I like the season that we're in right now. I think it's like darker and well written, but I'm also not Thai, so I could have, you know, that's a whole different experience too, where people will have their opinions on it. I'm always going to be like, okay, cool, you can make your thing about bad white people, and I'll probably watch it and be entertained at a surface level. But yeah, with the first season, it's like, if you're going to do this, Mike White, and you're going to do it without a writer's room, which if you did it with a writer's room and you had Kanaka writers in there and there was a point of view there that kind of antagonized your bad white characters, which would have like added tension and depth to the entire show, that's fine. But the fact that you're wanting to write it by yourself, which is fine, you're doing it and you do a good job, you need to open a pathway with your power to allow us to do our own things. Like there's hasn't been a show set in Hawaii by us, and it's 2025. Like that's the issue that I have with it. Is it entertaining? Do I love white mess? Yeah, I fucking love that shit. But it rubs me the wrong way, the whole auteur of it all. Like it doesn't need to be like you're this one lone writer director. I don't know. I'm such a TV person. It doesn't feel right to me to do that. But yeah, I'm like torn because I enjoy this third season. And also satire. Like if you're going to talk about colonization, but you're also going to say that your show is a satire, like all those scenes with Kai, I'm like, oh, well, none of this is serious. Like even what he's saying, like I kind of read it as like, oh, he's lying about this to get into this girl's pants. And because these are these like hyper liberal, like freshmen in college that have privilege and power, and they are getting off on this like sad sob story that he has on the beach. And under the guise of like satire and comedy, like none of that is serious. It's not really going deep into what it could be story-wise. So just don't say that it's about colonization. Say it's a satire. You're not doing your big one with this. Just let them be bad people and say that you're going to like erase us because the white people aren't paying attention in their being ugly, gross tourists. Like it's like don't try to say that, or if you're going to say that, like actually fund stuff for us to do or like produce stuff for us to do. Like I don't know, just use your power in a different way. Am I entertained? Yeah. Did I laugh? Sure. And I do like this season. I get it. It's good. But yeah, I have the same like sinking feeling when I watch it and when I heard it and why I avoided it for so long. I also don't live in Hawaii, so I don't have that connection like you're saying, like culturally Hawaiian. Like I'm culturally Californian. I don't have that experience.
I'm not Hawaiian either, right? But I can't even watch this shit. Like first of all, I can't. Y'all already know I do not watch shows that are just all white people. I've been force-fed that my whole life. I just can't do it anymore. Second of all, I definitely can't do it if you're setting it in one of our islands or just any kind of, and it's still censoring white people. I refuse to watch shit like that. So, I watched it for the sake of the podcast, and the first episode, enough just put me off. I was like, where are the Kanaka? And then straight away I went to Google to find out if the actress who played the pregnant woman was in fact Hawaiian. And I was like, so you don't even have a single cast member, like core cast member, that is of Kanaka descent. Like, and I was like, that's disgusting. And I just...
Yeah, I also have a thought about that too. I'm like, good. I don't want you writing it. If you're the only fucking person, stay far away from it. Just focus on these white people. Like, do less of that. Completely erase us. Like focus on the white characters that you can write for. Like I'd rather that if you're not going to have a writer's room and you're not going to have our perspective in it, then don't write about us at all.
But here's the thing: if you're not going to write about us, don't put it in the island to begin with.
Right, that too. Yes.
For me, like I'm just like, if you're going to have something here, at least like have some characters, and because then you have actors on set who can push back. They can push back and be like, "This is not what we'd say. This is not what we'd do."
Yeah.
And because he has nobody to actually check him or keep him.
That's why the lack of a writer's room, which is in a writer's room, you get all diverse perspectives on things. You can write these worlds. Well, but if you're just gonna, in theory, we would be in those writers' room. Like if you have a Kanaka character now, I think you would hope that we're in the room. Mm-hmm. I know it's not like the reality of it, but there's enough of us to write in a room. But there's no checks here.
You also have situations where people are hired because they hold a certain perspective and they aren't gonna keep you accountable, right? So that's another. There's a whole nother conversation about when you have people who are there to check a box or whatever. So either way, the show it just represents something very ugly about the history, and which is just a microcosm of the country itself, and just the way we treat indigenous peoples and Hawaiians in this case in particular. But yeah, here's the other thing. For me, if people talk about, this is the way that people pitch it to me, it's such good writing. It's so good. The writing is so good. And I'm like, I don't care how clever you think the writing is. If it does not speak to, if you are setting it in the Pacific and it isn't centering Pacific voices at all, it's not that good of writing. I don't care how intelligent you think this man is. He does not have the nous to incorporate voices other than his own. And that to me shows you have a very limited scope, and your intelligence and your awareness isn't where you think it is.
Different perspective. To me, the show seemed very accurate of tourism here. You go to any hotel, it is a lot of rich people, a lot of white people. You look at the staff. Yeah, there are Pacific Islanders who are dancing. There are Kanaka Maoli who are dancing. Then yes, a lot of the staff might be from all over the place. The girl waiting your table might be like a Haole girl and maybe she moved back after she graduated because she lived the life here. To me, the story seemed just so realistic. And yes, maybe he didn't incorporate enough Hawaiians in the story, but to me, he told a story and was like, do you all see how ugly you look? And then showed it to the world. That was my take. I mean, look at for me, my favorite characters after the show were Paula, the friend of the daughter who dated Kai. Kai was also a favorite. And then the son of the family who also realized this is not what I want. I didn't love that he wanted to move to Hawaii and find himself, but that is also realistic. So many people do that. That's a big thing going on TikTok right now about these creators coming to Hawaii and exploiting Hawaiian culture and Hawaii and growing their audience like that. And then the other one that you feel for the most is the fiance, that poor girl who was just got into this really rich, entitled family who are just so ignorant. All the characters are just so ignorant to the real world. And I love the blow up that Paula had at the luau when she leaves the table because she's like, I can't fucking take this.
Wait, Tia, what did you have to say? Why shouldn't we feel any sympathy for that or empathy for that girl?
Because I think the whole story there is that those women exist, specifically the white women that are trying to deny that they're marrying up, and they're trying to keep their autonomy and independence when they're marrying for financial kind of situations. It's like she made her bed and she's lying in it now, and she wants your sympathy that she can't be this independent woman with this man that she's chosen to marry.
But I think Paula is the friend of the teenager.
Yeah, but
Tia's talking about the fiance. But
yeah, he was like, "Oh, I feel bad for her. I don't really feel bad for her."
She did make her bed, lay in it.
Yeah.
Paula at the luau, when she stands up, she's like, "I can't fucking take this." Watching Hawaiians dance for people who stole their land. To me, I loved that moment, and that was when Paula became a favorite. But she still didn't quite get it. She was trying to help Kai in a way that she didn't really understand, and then ended up making it way worse. And then even the fact that we don't see Kai after he gets caught. That pain. I'm hoping that other people who don't understand how much pain is in Hawaii because of everything that's happened, hope that they felt that. Like, oh, he's just gone now, and all these rich people go about their daily lives like nothing fucking happened. To me, that was showing the reality of how ugly things are here.
Okay, but hold on. If that's the reality of how ugly things are, and it's not from a Hawaiian perspective, then how is it really painting the accuracy of how ugly it is? I don't think that shows any kind. That still shows a limited perspective.
Yeah,
to me.
but
sure, limited, but still, it's
I think that the
addressing
problem,
that.
It is interesting. I hear what you're saying, Michael, and I understand that it has a definitely an authenticity. I agree with you in terms of when you go to the resort and stuff like that. I think the problem for me is that there was not a single voice that could articulate what you're talking about in terms of pain, in terms of loneliness. There was not a point of view to bring us home to what the satire was about. And so in that way, I feel very silenced, because if you didn't get that point of view, then you just feel like it's exciting, it's fun, it's entertaining, and it's satire, but you're not fully getting the entire pain of the story, and it leaves a lot to be interpreted. You see that because you're from Hawaii and you see that experience, but I'm not counting on someone who's not from Hawaii to pick up all of the nuance that you are picking up.
I had that same thought. I was watching it from episode one. I'm already annoyed. I'm already annoyed at everybody. I'm like a typical, like, ignorant, rude tourist visiting Hawaii. Like, I get it. I already understand it. I've seen them a million times. I understand what's going on here. And yes, so when they start peeking into the pain and the stolen land and all the deep rooted issues that we have here in Hawaii, I felt it, like you said. And I also wonder, yeah, are other people catching this, or is this just going over their heads and they're like, oh, what a crazy story about these crazy tourists?
Yeah. And the fact that they just continue on, right? Like, because without that kind of point of view, it could just be like rich people being rich people, crazy rich.
You could set it anywhere, right? You could have that.
Yeah. Well, that's why they're doing it now anywhere. I think, well, also it's good to know like the inside baseball of it all. This was supposed to be a mini series. This was supposed to be just in Hawaii. And then because of the popularity of it, it got a second season and it got a third season and now it's an anthology. So it proves that point. I think also people think this is a deeper show than it is. And I think that it's a marketing thing. It's an HBO like premium cable show. It should be deeper than what it is. But really, I think it's just a surface level show of rich people being evil and ugly. And people are like really trying to pry at it. I don't think it helps that Mike White is like talking about like it being about colonization
Chopping words
and
like
stuff.
colonization. Yeah.
Yeah, like if he just let it be, it would be that surface level entertainment of like these interpersonal relationships. I think that's where the writing thing comes in, because sometimes like I try to give everything because this is what I want to do. I try to watch everything and analyze everything and try to just like not put like my own bias on something and just see what is the writing here. And the writing is good if it's just when it's like it's because it's these like scenes, these meaty scenes about these very well written characters having like interpersonal problems, which is why we want to watch. We want to watch the mess and how that goes on. I think because it came out in 2020, they shot it in COVID. There was a lot of like, political upheaval and trying not to get canceled and all that. The marketing of this was that this is a deeper, more serious show that's trying to say something. And it's like, it's not.
Yeah. But
it really isn't.
This is what happens when you have people dropping words like colonization and they don't have the range. They don't have the understanding of colonization and they don't have the range to speak about it. And so on his end, he probably does think this is deep. He probably does think that what I'm doing here is highlighting how terrible white people are. But it's like you're not showing it from the perspective of the people who are actually experiencing this. And that's why, I fault the writer. And I'm saying he is not a great writer if he can't take that into consideration, right? Because that goes to show how how do you put it? How just insular his world is, or how.
Well, yeah, but that's point of view. And I think that like as a writer, sometimes you're good at writing because of your point of view. And his point of view is limited and it shows in this.
And the truth is every writer's point of view is limited because we're humans.
Yeah.
And also it needs to be pointed out. And I mean, this goes back to what, Tia, you were saying about what shows have been done in Hawaii and Crit listing out all the filmography of Hawaii. And we haven't had a point of view from a Kanaka writer, or, you know what I mean? And certainly not a modern take. I know that there's some historical stuff that's about to come out, but that's historical and that sounds like it's going to be amazing. But how about who we are today? And I think one thing that stands out to me in the show as far as limited point of view is the guys in the canoe, with that guy, with the boy Quincy and him going down and seeing the guys in the canoe. And, they're clearly guys who know how to paddle and have been paddling for a while. And by the end of the show, him allowing like, oh, now I can get in and paddle with them. And we don't know about the guys. And we know is the nature and the beauty. And I feel like that is,
they're romanticizing that whole,
it's romanticizing it, but it's also a colonist's point of view.
Mhm.
And so you can't tell me your show is about colonization when you don't see your unconscious bias, that particular thread is you showing us this boy who's in wonder of these nameless, mute Hawaiian men who do this Hawaiian activity that you
Mhm.
are like is magical and is a myth to you. And then you, this little white boy, is going to magically become good enough to be with them in their
Right.
Yeah.
boat. And we're never going to know anything about it. And then that's going to motivate you to stay here. Because at the end of the day, that is what so many people think of Hawaii. They're like, I'm going to move to Hawaii because of the romance, because of the myth. And in the actuality of it, I don't know anything about Hawaiians. I don't know about culture. And I want it to feel like La Jolla. I want it to feel like where I've just come from. Because really, all I want is the image, the romance, the feeling. And you're not really looking at us. And that particular storyline is very fucking problematic. And that is a storyline of someone who's been in Hawaii for 3 weeks.
Mhm.
That's problems. That is a
Yeah.
problem. You can write amazing scenes around a pool,
Mhm.
but you are perpetuating a very dangerous myth by doing that storyline. And that needs to be addressed.
Well, again, it's that intentional attack on sovereignty where it's like you can come here and you can basically take whatever you want. You know, you can be accepted into the culture because it's essentially what it's saying, and then just stay here forever. And that again takes away from the people of the land.
Yeah, I mean, but there's a ton of people who are moving to Hawaii now who really want Hawaii with no Hawaiians.
Mm,
You know, that's fucked up. And Hawaiians are leaving. There's a lot of Hawaiians who cannot
yeah.
afford it anymore. This is a big problem. This is a problem that's happening a lot. And, you know, White Lotus, I think, came out around COVID. How many people moved to Hawaii after White Lotus came out? And then how
Mhm.
many Hawaiians moved to Vegas?
Mhm.
That's a problem.
You know, and
What
to,
were you
to
gonna
Tia's
say?
point earlier when you were talking about, oh, you know, they don't want to get canceled and stuff. It's like, when were they ever canceled? Like, you know, like these shows,
No, I
movies
mean
and
more
TV shows have
like
been made for so long.
respectability politics or appeasing the masses of the trend of like because will always talk about Hollywood thinking things that are serious issues as trending like
Yeah,
things. Well, in 2020, it was all about,
with
you
all the
know,
uprisings
the
and people
uprisings and everything.
DI.
And
Yeah,
that is a trend. And so it's like, okay, let me market this show that I wrote about
yeah.
whiteness. Cool. A white person writing about whiteness. Cool. But don't market it that it's deeper than what it is because it's not. And you're not checking yourself and you're not checking your unconscious bias.
Well, I think the point I'm making is, regardless of how they marketed it, right? They
Mhm.
would never get canceled anyway. That's
Well,
why
yeah,
people don't
yeah.
ever get
Well,
canceled.
I like cancel culture is not real. So
Yeah.
like, yeah, but I'm saying in that specific time period of when it came out. My thing that I always am griping about this is that it looks like shit. Like it visually, Hawaii looks like shit in this, and I've never seen it look worse. Like the yellow color grading, the lighting of it all, it doesn't look good, and I think it was an intentional choice to make it because we're not focused, like because the rich people are not focusing on the beauty of Hawaii. It's like our focus is with them and we're viewing it like how they view it. But that I always was like, what? Like from the first frame, I'm like, this shit looks bad. It's yellow.
I wonder if that was intentional, or maybe that was intentional and they changed their mind in season 2 and season 3, because they do focus on the beauty in Italy and then the beauty of
Well, I think
Thailand.
they had a higher budget. It also is
Could
a
be.
very,
Yeah,
very
for
much
sure.
a one like first season
Yeah.
looks like even the camera stuff that they do in 2 and 3 are like so elevated and it's very much giving higher budget.
Come, I guess this might be a question for you. How do you kind of consolidate that idea of they made Hawaii out to be something less beautiful than it was, when the main perspective of tourism is it's this paradise and you know all those things, and they are focusing on the aesthetic of it all.
I mean, I think it's kind of cool in that way, like if they're making it look shitty and stuff like that. I think it's also really good to point out they never leave their resort, right? Really.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? And I think that's really realistic too, because how many people do you know that go to Hawaii, they have their favorite resort and they never leave. And then they're like, I love Hawaii. And I'm like, no, you love the Hilton Hawaiian Village.
Yeah, exactly.
You know, you love like wherever you're going, you love Wailea, like pick your island. That's and in that way, like kudos. I think that's a real experience. Do you know what I mean? I'm not trying to say Mike White got it all wrong, because he didn't. He didn't. There's some stuff in there that I think is really accurate, but I think there's some things that are really problematic. And I think that they just need to be addressed, because the amazing thing about entertainment and mass media is when people watch it, they are stirred and they are influenced. And if you're trying to say you're influencing one way, but you're accidentally influencing a different way because
Yeah.
you're seeing your own unconscious bias, that is problematic. It doesn't mean that he's not a good writer or that the whole show is shit. I mean, it's clearly not. It's award-winning show, season 2, season 3, like every indication is that it's a very good show, but it's a problematic show for a very specific group of people, which is Hawaiians.
Oh, I'm gonna push back on you, Kim. Just because it makes money doesn't mean it's good.
No, just because it makes money doesn't mean it's good. But I'm also saying, like, I mean, artistically, it has problems. It is a flawed show. It is not a good representation. I guess what I'm trying to say is that as he's coming out and saying, like, my intention is to show this and da 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 da, it's like we need to recognize you have unconscious bias. You have a limited point of view. So the thing that you're intending on showing, you're actually doing the reverse because you don't have enough breath into this community to represent it in the way you think. Do you know what I mean? Like, I remember reading the interviews with Cameron Crowe about Aloha, and he was like, no, I met this girl and she said she was Hawaiian and nobody thought she was Hawaiian. So she walked around saying she was Hawaiian to everybody. That happened. That's why I cast Emma Stone. And I was like thinking, dude, his intention is not wrong, but his point of view is very limited. He didn't bother investigating, asking the actual people. Do you know what I mean? Like, that is a very problematic character. And then it shows in the movie. I mean, that movie, by the way, is a piece of shit all the way around.
Right.
That movie is my villain
all the way around.
origin story.
What movie was it?
Aloha.
Aloha.
Like, so that's what I'm saying. White Lotus, not a piece of shit all the way around. Aloha, piece of shit all the way around. And when Emma Stone's character goes to that community of, it's kind of like a sovereignty community and stuff, quintessentially, it is a white girl walking in to a sovereignty community. She has no idea what it is to be Hawaiian. She has no idea what it is to be mixed. She has no idea what it is to walk into a community and either feel like she's being seen by her people or not being seen by her people. She walks in like a haole girl in a luau, and it doesn't work. And there's nobody there with the context of what it is to be Hapa to correct that. And that's what I'm trying to say. Do you know what I'm saying?
She also has blonde hair. Like platinum blonde hair. That movie is the reason why I was like, oh, I'm gonna be an actor. Like, the fact that they're casting her for this, not that I would ever want to be in that movie, because that is a pile of shit. Crazy fucking bad movie. But we can thank that movie for me having the audacity to come into Hollywood. It like made me so angry. So I just wanted to state that. Not important, just me being like, I wouldn't be here without that movie because it fucking pissed me off.
It's just about point of view. That's what I'm just trying to say. People have good intentions, but you need context, you need point of view, you need breath. And it's okay to ask people in the community to assist you in telling the story that you want to tell. And I think that's what went wrong. He thinks he's telling one story and he's not.
I agree with that. Even Kai's story didn't seem like a realistic story, that his family used to own the land of the resort and they were trying to get it back. Like, that's not something that ever happens. It would have been something maybe smaller, and that would have been a little more believable, something more relatable that people go through consistently. I like it because that pissed me off. And my hope, like we talked about, Kim, I hope that other people can catch a little glimpse of that, of how bad it is and how ugly tourists can be. And maybe when they visit, they'll think wait, I don't want to be like that shitty character I saw on White Lotus, because that guy just made me sick to my stomach. I couldn't stand the sight of him. I wanted to punch him in the face every time I saw him. I don't want to be that guy. Or when they're standing around at a beach and they hear another tourist treating someone else like that, treating a local like that, they can speak up and be like, "Hey, cut that out," or interject and be polite and just try to look outside of their little blinders of their own little world that's so selfish and self-absorbed.
That's an interesting take, because I feel like how we talked about last episode about Moana 2 being for us and it's a whole different story. I'm like, oh, well, is this a whole different story when white people are watching it and they are feeling like ashamed to see their bad behavior, and then maybe it is changing some of their behaviors and we're just not catching that because we're like, what the fuck is this shit? It's not speaking to us.
I think so. I think that's the White Lotus series. Each series you're looking at really like the ugly and the nasty of reality of tourists visiting other places and not even like caring about that place. I mean, yeah, in Italy there was the three generations: the grandfather, the son, and the father and the son, and they're there to visit their old village, their old town. Still, though, it was not like that. That was just a little taste of that is the reality. There are Italians who want to go back to Italy and find their old town, but that was just like a little taste of it.
But how fun in the second season when you have the women who are in Italy.
All the staff over there at the hotel.
And then the two young women who are coming in, who are trying to take advantage of the tourists, who are trying to make their dime, and the front desk woman. And how fun to see the residents of Italy, the actual Italians, interacting and trying to get their one over on the tourist. Like, yes. I really liked all of that, because then it's like, this is what it is to live in a tourist town, right? And like, yes. This is what it is to try to have your career as a woman in a managerial position. Like, I really enjoyed all those stories. And I love the storyline of like, we're Italian. And then the Italians are being like, no, you're not Italian.
Yeah, exactly.
And I just feel like it's a different, I mean, obviously every season has to be different, but I think to me that was really missing. Like, all of the Hawaii part of season one was missing in that where we went in Italy. You know what I mean? Sure. That part.
That's the real commentary, right? Is this is what it means to survive. Like, this is what it looks like to survive in Hawaii amongst all the colonization and all the mess that's happening. Like, that in itself, showing those characters' voices, that would have provided so much of that.
Yeah, that would have been nice. Interestingly enough, season 3 kind of goes back to how season 1 was.
Oh, interesting. I haven't seen
where there's a couple in there, and so you get to see them interact. But it still very much is, this place is getting exploited by rich white people. And they move here to run away from feds or whatever it is. They're coming here to exploit this place. And it felt very much like season 1, whereas season 2, and maybe that's I don't know if that's like a skin color thing, where it's Europe, and so we'll give them a little more love, and they can fight back. Their characters end up beating the Americans somehow.
It absolutely is that, because I just read that the Greg's girlfriend character in season 3, she was recast halfway through filming. They had a Thai actress playing that role, which makes more sense, and she was fired and they recast it. Don't know, I didn't read further.
This is exactly what I meant about if they had cast a native Hawaiian in that first season, they would have had someone checking Mike.
Well, it would have been a completely different story if, who's the guy who gets murdered in season 1? Sean or Shane or whatever his name is.
Right, the hotel manager.
Murray Bartlett.
The hotel manager. Yeah. What if that was a Hawaiian guy?
Or who I thought would be a perfect...
I mean, that like changes the dynamic of all of season 1, because we would get to know who that Hawaiian hotel manager was. Like, we would just know his character more, and the dynamics would be so different. And sorry, Tia, if this tourist killed this Hawaiian guy, that is talking about what we're talking about. That's colonization in that way. That like amplifies what Mike White is saying this season is about. And so I just don't think he took advantage of what he could have done, because that
Yeah.
could have really been a very juicy season where we are now talking about tourists killing the people who are here to enjoy the land.
That would have been so good.
That's a sick ass season one. And instead we went with a white guy, because I don't think we were going to get into that story.
Belinda's character and her storyline, if that was someone who was Hawaiian, who wanted to start a business on her own, finds this white lady that can fund it. And then, of course, it's like this gaslighting of colonization that we could together make this business and your life would be better. It's like that's saying something different. And then we could go with her to Thailand as well, and she's having that same perspective. Like, it's just, need a writer's room. You need people.
Tia and Kim, you're both making me question also my thought that maybe he was trying to like shed some light on the ugliness here, because you're right, Kim. If he really wanted to, then make the hotel manager Hawaiian, and like Tia said, make Belinda Hawaiian as well.
I also think, like, again, like this is a deeper conversation or whatever, is like, this is about class. This isn't about race. It's not about whiteness. It's about class. And like, because white people, no, you can't separate the two, but white people do often, you know, like they'll talk about class without talking about whiteness. Like that doesn't inform each other. And I feel like that's kind of what's happening here. It's really just a conversation of the white point of view on class. And you know, not to generalize, but a lot of the time when they're talking about that, they never include whiteness in that. It's just, oh, we're all experiencing the same class issues together.
Right. And they're just looking at
in the same way.
People, but not.
Yeah. But they're not understanding like the entire colonization thing of it all. But we're like over almost at an hour. Okay. So do we want to rate it and wrap it up?
I just want to say, I think, you know, Crit, when you're talking about sovereignty and getting these stories made and stuff like that, I think that as a writer who's constantly pitching stories about Hawaii, I hope that that's not true, because I want to get stories about us made. And I think one step that can be made is when someone makes a show about Hawaii, they need to invite the people from Hawaii or any community into the process. Otherwise, whoever's making the show will have the limited experience of a 3-week stay. And that's never, ever, ever going to change. And I think that so many shows that go to Hawaii, they will find maybe one person who's from Hawaii who may or may not be Hawaiian. And then they're probably a mid to lower level writer who doesn't have the power to say anything. And then they use them as a buffer to be like, no, we have our Hawaiian, right? You said that was fine. You said that was fine. That's a very unfair place to put a writer who's in the newer parts of their career against a lot of executive writers who could fire them and be the buffer.
And then be blacklisted for the rest of their careers, right?
Then, or just blame them or be like, it's the scapegoat. It's not a winning position, because it's like, no, we talked to the Hawaiian guy and he said it was fine. Or it's not working. Well, we had a Hawaiian. I guess it's not working. It's not okay. These are not okay. You cannot hire one person in the room. And showrunners and higher up executives need to come from the communities that the shows are about. That's how you remedy this. Yeah. Do you know what I mean? It needs to happen. And I don't see that happening. I don't see that changing.
Yeah, and that's why I always speak to, like, Kim, I really hope to God that you get to bring all your stories to life, right? And it's and there's that whole thing where I encourage our talent coming up to not ever let Hollywood validate them, you know, and if you create a show or whatever and it's not on Hollywood, like TV screens and in movie theaters, it's going to reach whoever it's meant to reach, right? And you have to trust that. But and it's a shame, because Hollywood is so powerful in the ways that everyone's perspective of our different communities comes from Hollywood, right? But it hasn't been working for us for the last 100 years. Like, we can't bank on them to be the ones to bring our stories to life in the way we want them, right? Even if you do get shows greenlit, you hear of so many people who finally get their chance, but there's still so many parts of the shows that they can't do because they're at the mercy of what these white executives want at the end of the day. And so our stories are always going to be diluted to some extent, but it's like, how do we, oh God, this is a whole nother conversation. How do we create an industry outside of Hollywood, you know? And that's when it's like, that's why, oh gosh, this is a whole nother conversation. But you look at Tyler Perry, for all his faults and all that, he has shown the blueprint for existing outside of Hollywood, how to create something of your own where you have about, not going to endorse or anything that he creates, but like, how do we do that? How do we get someone with a lot of money to create a studio where we can create our own stuff and we're not at the whims of, you know, these white execs?
Yeah.
Or it's like infiltrating at every level of the industry and training those people to like, it's about creating those pipelines. Like we went to Netflix the other day to see that new show they had, and they talked about Shondaland does that, which is the ladder program, which is that they literally take people and they train them to be in every level, every crew member level, so that they can get into the union. It's about having those kinds of things. You know a little bit about pipelines, Crit, since you're trying to create those for us.
Yeah.
Hope though, guys. I mean, like, I know they're outliers, but I don't want to give up hope because I
of course.
Reservation Dogs. I look at Shogun. I look at Moana 2, and I feel like I have hope that if people are drawn to the story, and we are people and we have a universal story, but it's nuanced around us, people will relate to us and see us in a new way. It just needs to be birthed in the brain of people who are from the land.
Yes.
And that's it.
I think it's going to take our women to be in those higher positions to give back, because we have a couple of men up there, and what are they doing for us, right? Like, what are they doing to give back? And yeah, I really do think it's the Danas out there, it's the Kims out there, it's the Tias out there who are going to turn things around. So I'm excited for that day. Yeah, for me, I'm dry as hell. This did not meet the mark in any way for me. And again, going back to, you know, oh, it's great writing, all that. To me, it's not great writing if you can't see your blind spots. I'm just sorry. Yeah, I'm not sorry, but that's it for me.
That's valid. I think, season 1, dry. Season 3, I hate to admit it, it's fucking dark, it's weird, and like, I like it. It's fucked up. That's a different story. We're talking about season 1, dry. Could be better. Don't know how it got the acclaim it has, and the trajectory to season 3 doesn't make sense to me. That's me. I also like Mike White. If you do eventually, no, I don't think I would want to work on this. But I feel like I shouldn't be this opinionated so early in my career. Whatever. YOLO.
Yeah, I still appreciate that it was giving us a peek into how absolutely ugly the tour situation can be here. But it left me wanting more. So gave me like just a few droplets. I was definitely not quenched at all. Still very thirsty, and mouth is dry.
No one's talking about mouth, Michael.
Right.
I'm talking about being in a desert when you like need some water.
Yeah,
you know?
okay.
Get your mind out of the gutter.
Okay, how about you?
As a Kanaka, dry as hell. If I maybe was from somewhere else and had no love from where I was from and had no interest in knowing about what was really happening where I vacationed, maybe I'd be moist, but then I'd be ignorant.
No, that's what I was gonna say, Kim. I don't think you can watch this in any context. Like for me, right? I can't watch any show where white people are centered and the indigenous people don't have a voice, or the marginalized communities don't have a voice. I would feel the same way watching any other show, but I feel more connection to the show as a result. But like, I'm still very much like that takes over for me.
I totally agree with you.
All right, that sums up Fresh Takes for this week. We'll see you next time. Thank you again, Kim, and bye, hoes.